Welcome everybody to today's webinar with the title Exploring the Real-World Benefits of Data Automation and How Does It Change Our Working Lives. My name is Julian Erev. I'm a researcher at the University of Stuttgart and I'm representing the TDWI community today. And I'm glad to be here with the other speakers, Donna Cooper and Simon Spring from WhereScape, Simon Esmonde from who is a Chief Data Officer at Rank Group, and Torjul Hellman, who is Chief Architect at the TIR. Before we get starting, just some organizational notes. During the webinar, all participants are muted. However, that does not mean you can't participate. So please feel free to ask any questions through the webinar tool. We will collect your question and answer as many as possible at the end of the discussion. So before we get started, I will quickly introduce the TDWI community to you. The TDWI community is a network of experts and practitioners, researchers, consultants, and vendors that like to discuss all things data. We see ourselves as an opinion leader and an independent information source for the BI community and for everything regarding analytics. For this, we like to bring together different people with the same mindset in events like meetups, roundtables, and large conferences in Munich and Zurich every year. We also like to share our knowledge with our magazines, the BI Spectrum, with different textbooks, regular blogs, and other publications. The idea of the community is to share knowledge, to bring people together, and it is important to see here that everything we do comes from the community and is for the community. So we live from all the members of our community. So if this sounds interesting to you, please feel free to contact us to be part of this vibrant community and benefit from the knowledge and the network and become a member of the TDWI community. At this moment, I want to thank a very important member, WhereScape, who brought us together here to talk about automation in the data sector, and who made this webinar possible at the first point. And now, before we get dive into the topic and I hand over to the other speakers, I want to give you a quick introduction to the domain of automation. Well, for me personally, it's very interesting to discuss automation because I have a strong developer background, and for software in the area of software engineering, automation is not that new. And I think we can learn a lot from other domains like software engineering or manufacturing, where automation has been proven over the years. And I think we will be better off if we adapt a lot the ideas and the learnings from other domains. So if we look at software engineering a few years back, it was like black magic, and there were like these wizards, software developers who have a lot of internal knowledge, and there were only few standardized processes, and often it was very hacky to build software. And this led to different levels of quality. We had a lot of error-prone manual processes, and oftentimes like a lot of features came to the backlog, and they were like the big releases, and people just realized this is not the way to build professional modern software in today's world. So one way to tackle these issues was automation. People started to introduce like automatic deployment pipelines. They started to automate testing, and this all led to faster and smaller increments, higher quality with test automation, and to the idea of continuous integration, where you iteratively build software in small steps with a high level of automation. So automation made the life of a software developer way easier. And for me, now working in a data analytics area, I think a lot of these ideas can help us with our current issues in the data analytics sector. So if we have DevOps in the engineering, software engineering area, we maybe need something like DataOps in the data analytics area, where we talk about the automation of data pipelines, automatic processing of data, test automation of data and data schemas, and all this with the idea to industrialize the analytical process, make it bring a higher quality, faster, make things faster, and have less headache with it. So I'm really curious to learn more today about the real world benefits of data automation, see some insights from practice and some experiences of the practitioners. And I'm really curious to hear more about that. With that said, I will hand over to Donna from WhereScape, who will tell us more about it.
That's great. Thanks very much, Julian. So my name is Donna Cooper and I'm the Marketing Director for EMEA at WhereScape. Before we see the presentations from Rank Group and Atea, I just wanted to give you a brief introduction to WhereScape to get a bit of an idea of who we are and what we do. So back in 2001, WhereScape was founded in New Zealand. Today we're a proven leader in data infrastructure automation and helping IT teams deliver faster and provide more value to the business. We've got a history steeped in expertise combined with innovation and have worked with companies to deliver automation software that's fueling data warehouse design, development and best practice. All of this whilst easing the learning curve associated with leveraging new technologies. Most recent examples include Data Vault, Snowflake and streaming as well. We currently have over 700 customers worldwide that represent organisations of all sizes. These companies are using our technology to automate the generation of repetitive coding and project documentation. Essentially, we're giving developers bandwidth to focus on higher value work and just get on with doing the more interesting stuff associated with delivering data to the business. Today, we're headquartered in the US and our sales and support staff are located throughout the States, EMEA and Asia Pacific regions, and we also have an active network of partners around the world. I won't go too deeply into this. I just wanted to give you a very, very high overview of the technologies that are available from WhereScape. The first of which is WhereScape 3D. Now, this is for data or model-driven design. It provides a really fast and effective route to planning, modelling, designing and prototyping a range of data approaches. And this can include data warehouses, data vaults, data lakes, data marts. Essentially, 3D allows you to more easily understand your data and go quickly from concept to prototype whilst automatically creating and updating documentation. Then we have WhereScape Red. Now, this automates the development of operations and workflows. It generates platform native code with best practice approaches built in. And whether you're on premise or in the cloud, Red delivers essentially a variety of data approaches within an integrated development environment. And lastly, we have Data Vault Express. This has Data Vault 2.0 patterns and best practices built in. It reduces the complexity of building and updating compliance data vaults and with wizards and templates for ease of use, consistency and speed. So we've touched on this already, but I guess the question is why, in our opinion, is it now time for automation? So in essence, for us, data infrastructure automation, when it's applied to more traditional platforms and data sources, is genuinely helping IT teams to reduce the data warehouse lifecycle. If we compare it to previous manual methods, for example, our customers are seeing an 80% reduction in development time and a 5 times increase in developer productivity as well. All of this is delivering much faster time to value for investment. It's simplifying and speeding up and standardizing development. This reduces data integration and infrastructure project risk and cost. All of this with greater consistency and quality. And complex environments are frankly a fact of life now. And to overcome it, our customers must adopt a core strategy to manage data and tackle this complexity head on. So our automation first mindset and approach in developing and managing these infrastructures makes it easier for data warehousing teams to pull in data flows from new types of data sources, all of which simplifies the complexity for the individuals who are new to these tasks. Now, across the business, despite having more data than ever, it's really difficult to extract value from it in a timely fashion. Organizations simply can't get that access to the insightful data that informs business decisions that are so critical today. For that, access to real-time data is key. At WhereScape, we often talk about how business requirements are always wrong. And this is purely down to the lag between requests to IT from the business about delivery of information and that said information then being delivered for the business to consume and understand. And finally, of course, for us, it's all about agility. If you want to be fast and agile with your data, you have to have a strategy that's built on enabling you to do just that. Data warehouse environments offer this unified, governed, large-scale support for analytics. Any business that wants to move quickly with data has to have an enterprise-wide data warehouse. It's absolutely essential in terms of transforming data collected from far-reaching, diverse data sources across the organisation and across the world. Obviously, I have to give you a very brief overview of the types of companies that are using our software. We are adding value across the world. There is no single type of organisation that's focused on using WhereScape's technology. Any business where data drives decisions benefit from our automated approach. Micron, for example, these guys design and build some of the world's most advanced memory and semiconductor technologies. They've got more than 20,000 patents across a really broad portfolio of memory solutions. These guys were struggling to prepare and extract manufacturing big data from 12 separate sites in a way that was quick enough to provide meaningful company-wide business intelligence. With WhereScape, as you can see, it now takes them just 1 hour to deliver new data warehouse prototypes. It used to take weeks. Healthsana, who is one of the newer customers in the EMEA region, they're one of the largest health insurance providers in Switzerland, with nearly 2 million customers and a turnover of over 6 billion Swiss francs. Here, the BI team's reliance on hand coding meant that schedule releases just took too long. Now, thanks to WhereScape, they can see much quicker turnaround times from business request to IT delivery. And the BI team can now use much more agile methodologies to add value rather than just trying to keep up with the requests as they came in. Vodafone Netherlands need little introduction. It's one of the Vodafone Netherlands is part of the Vodafone Group. In this instance, the company's ITIL development was complex and expensive. Projects took months and cost a huge amount of money and delivered very little value. They're now seeing a massive reduction in delivery to the business. Rabobank as well, another organisation based out in the Netherlands. We've worked specifically with their loans and asset management division. They wanted to build a data warehouse that met the requirements it had from its regulatory reporting chain. And again, this has really changed the dynamics within the data team. Our technology is providing them with new ways to work that is saving time, effort and money on repetitive tasks. And last of all, we have Volkswagen. This is actually Volkswagen Commercial Vehicles. It's a subsidiary of Volkswagen. And again, this was a business intelligence-led initiative. They needed to deliver iterative information that was rapid, up to speed, and they needed to be able to change any single component within the warehouse, and for that to automatically trigger a number of changes that impacted all of the dependent components. And by automating a number of those processes, they're able to do that now faster than ever. So that's it from me. In short, data automation delivers. It delivers quickly, cost effectively, securely, easily, and most importantly, in a very standardized, compliant and trusted way. So now I'm going to pass over to Simon and Esmonde Taylor from Rank Group.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Donna. The focus I have as a Chief Data Officer is really on the value of data. So the way I come at automation is I want to get to value faster. And I think if you thought about Donna's slides, where she was talking about sort of risk and speed to value, all those sort of things, I think we're probably consistent with those things. So it's kind of interesting as a provider of that automation, and also us as an organization that is transforming and trying to get value from data very quickly. Those things are absolutely aligned, and it's kind of interesting that the benefits we're trying to get out of this, which I'll talk about in a minute, are absolutely critical. If you want to get significant value from your data, you can't take a long time to get there. So I'll talk you through those things. My starting point, I suppose, is that we can automate many things. We can look at automating some of our decisions through AI. We can automate some of our processes and everything else. But what I want to focus on is the engineering, because as soon as I can get data to our data scientists, data to our BI team, data to the business that they can use, that they can start getting value from, then that's really my starting point. So I'm really focusing on that engineering bit, which is really about ingesting the data and building out data sets. So when I first brought a team into Rank to do data, the challenge was that everyone was saying it was so complex. We had several hundred systems, didn't really understand how to bring those together into one place. So one of the reasons that we wanted to be able to put some structure on it was to get over that inertia, getting to the point where we understood exactly what we had to do. We almost had a templated approach, a structured approach. That's got us over the inertia. And actually, that's one of the key things that people often forget in this, is that you bring a team together and you start with a blank sheet of paper and say, what are you trying to do? So actually, automation and the right tool enables you to have that process, and you then can get over that initial discussion of, well, how are we going to do it? And actually straight into, let's get on with it in a structured way. But in terms of complexity, that the agility piece is absolutely critical, because you won't always get that right. And you need to, learn fast. You need to be able to fail and be able to recover quickly. So the agility to be able to work with the metadata that describes what you're trying to do and have a proper process is really, really critical in this. So agility is good. And you've got a new team coming together, or an existing team learning new tools. You've got to be able to do something, and in showing the business what you're trying to do, the quicker you can do things, the more you can show them. Agility is critical to that. I put in reduction of stress. Actually, it was one of the things that people were pulling their hair out when they were trying to understand how we would get this done and everything else. And we were putting pressure on the people in the team to deliver fast. And they were saying, well, it all takes a long time. Actually, as soon as we put in automation using WhereScape, we were actually able to reduce that stress significantly. The conversations became a lot better, a lot more constructive, and that was good all round. Much healthier discussions. The quality of understanding of the solution is critical, because I think when you know that you've got an awful lot of data you're trying to adjust, you know what value you're trying to get. If you understand how you're doing it, how all those things are working, it enables people to talk about how they can do things better rather than what should we be doing. And so that's just a major step forward. And the better project management, I think, again, when you've got a defined process through automation, you then understand how you can fine tune it. You understand how long it'll take to deliver. And I think almost inevitably, I would turn around and say, well, when can we deliver something? And if you've got a repeatable process that people understand, you can then start committing to timescales, where if you're hard code, if you're manually coding things, it's very difficult to estimate those things. So all of those things, complexity, was the starting point. Donna picked up on risk, and I think from our perspective, that was a big deal. Being able to talk to people about what you're doing, that's partly on the basis of understanding the process. We can have good discussions with the business, with people who are providing the data, with the experts on the data, to be able to say, can you see this? What about this? It just enables that collaborative approach amongst everyone. And that led to a reduction in errors. And what was interesting is just when you start seeing the results of what you're doing through automation, and you get that information more quickly, the number of errors you produce, rather than doing a lot of work and then suddenly producing a result and go, magic, we produce something, and then people go, that's not what we're expecting. We were able to kind of get through that process much more quickly. The team learned fast. They were able to fix and improve things when they found problems, because inevitably with data, you will have problems along the way, whether that be data captured at source, learning and understanding and fixing those things. With automation, you get all of that built in, and it's really, really helpful. And using WhereScape, we had the first bit of documentation we've ever produced, which was just a result, which is a massive reduction in risk, and means that as a result, we could test things. The testers knew what they were looking at, the business knew what they were going to get. So and anyone else picking up on that piece of work later on could then read the documentation. They knew what they were up against. So from a risk perspective, massive change. Satisfaction, I guess, I care about, I've got a team of people who are trying to deliver and, doing their best to get these things done. And if they're happier, if they're able to see what they're doing and know that they're getting results faster, then they get praise from the business, and the business are happy because they can see stuff. And what came out of that was a really good set of discussions where the business were able to see things and say, okay, you're able to do that quickly. We're able to see results quickly rather than waiting a long time for something. And as a result, much better interaction between the data team and the key business users. And as a result, we weren't finding really big problems and someone saying, well, the data's wrong. We were actually looking at the data, improving the data sets on the way. So these are kind of surprising side effects from automation, and just that engagement and the satisfaction of the key business users and the data team significant. And by the data team, I mean those developers, people who are looking at data quality, data governance, and anyone doing testing as well. So as a cooperative tool, it makes a massive difference. Time, I think, we're now getting to the value, because the quicker you can get the value to the business matters. So for us, it was the ability to scale. And I think Donna talked about 5 times improvement in performance. I think that's what we were looking at. We had the option to go out and recruit more people. We didn't want to do that. We wanted a small and well-focused team to do stuff. And the ability to scale that team was critical. We were doing a major transformation, trying to generate value quickly, and we've been able to do that. I can absolutely categorically say, as a result of this work, we've moved the share price, and our revenues have gone up across the board by 10%, because we're able to start getting data out there, start making decisions faster and everything else. So that was critical. The speed to deliver, I think, is implied in this. Once you've been through one iteration and you start doing more, then the time to get something out has exceeded all of our expectations. So all of that gets you to value quicker. You've got the data, you're then able to put it in your warehouse, give it to your data scientists, be able to build dashboards on top. The knowledge around that data, being able to do something with it, that has been incredible. And the repeatability is important from our perspective, because we're looking at data across a whole organization. We've integrated another business in there, and we have to be able to go through, improve, modify, and build new data sets out. So from our perspective, time to deliver something gets closer to what the business were expecting. If you can ever do that, we're certainly getting much closer. So in our view, one of our major parts of our business, we were able to deliver a lot of value within 1 month from starting with about 15 different data sources across people data, customer data, finance data, product data, and bringing all that together and being able to show how we can reduce our costs and generate more revenue. So that time to do that was just quite amazing. And finally, really, it's about cost, because if we can get to the point where we have the right cost point for doing this, so ability to scale on that, but the ability to keep our costs down, it's not so much about having less people, it's about doing things more effectively and being able to make sure that what you're doing is cost effective. The business see it. As soon as you start delivering, and you deliver it in a cost-effective way, you then have permission from your chief exec, your CFO, to go out there and deliver more. So cost reduction, many people think about keeping costs down, is actually about value for money. And I think when you can scale, when you can manage those costs and control the costs, so by that, maybe the earlier point about project management, you're able to define how long it's going to take to build something, get that right, get the cost predictions right, and therefore do something in a reasonable way. People then trust what you're delivering. So, as I would say in summary, before I hand over to Torgil, who's going to get far more technical than me, this really is about, getting, your automation away that you can get value to people quicker, they understand what they're getting, and then you can start, generating more activity for the team and a happier team. So Torgil, over to you.
So yes, so ITIL automation, how it changed my working life, which it did a lot. So please. So before I did the automation with a specific software, my day was full of, and my team was full of, how do you say, repetitive, error-prone tasks that could go wrong. I was very dependent on specific individuals who do the specific tasks, and we had a lot of different stacks and different systems, and so you have to be able to understand like 10 or 15 different databases and to get out the business data. And there was a high focus on how each system worked, and I couldn't scale, and we were just focused on making the system to work, not being able to look forward and embrace any change. And when it comes to my meetings, this was a huge language barrier to everyone in the business side. I mean, we have to spend hours and hours and keeping specialists to discuss how specific fields were calculated and where the data came from. And there was just a huge focus on the technology instead of just focus on what the business actually needed. And of course, the business didn't trust us, and or of course they did, but we had trust issues. I mean, they didn't really believe that some figures were correct. So then we decided to do automation, and with automation, it's really about scaling technology. I mean, that is the what I think is the major thing with automation. Bringing small units together to one long string of actions that will bring you data that you can repeat over and over again. So my new life is that I'm eliminating complexity. So now I can actually take the end-to-end process, and everyone in the room understands it pretty quickly. I don't have to repeat myself. I mean, once we have done the introduction to how the end-to-end process works, most of the people in the room is on board. And now we can easily do compliance, we can do audit, we can track information, we can, I mean, if they come with one invoice and they want to understand how do we do the calculation, it's documented. And if you run into problems, it's very easy to isolate that problem to just be affecting that part of the business. Before we did automation, we didn't really understand the impact of change. So when you do automation, if you change something, you know upfront how much you're risking. Before that, I didn't really understand the risk what I'm doing. And when it comes to meeting, now finally I have the common language. We are speaking the same language as the business. And of course, I do have a lot of techie things, but that is not what we need to discuss during these meetings. It's more that we can focus on what you need and how fast can we get the data so you can do the analytics. And now we can verify all the data, and we can also, yeah, we can verify the data and how to say, keep versions of it very easily. So you can compare it, how did the last run go compared to the newest one. So to get the automation to work from a very, I mean, a high level thing is that you need a software, of course. And WhereScape is a very good example. But most of all, you need to embrace the most boring thing of IT. And then the next slide. And that is ITIL. I can't really stress how important it is, but if you are in the big environment, the ITIL is a fantastic framework to get best practices. And automation is about best practices. So in ITIL, you will have a defined process for doing incident, change, and problem management. And also, this is something you can hand out to the business side and say, hey, this is how we will deal with the issues. If you find an incident, we can deal with it together in the framework of ITIL. And this was a huge success as soon as everyone was on board on this most boring topic ever, but it's a fantastic way to move forward. And you need to be able to embrace change, otherwise automation is not for you. So nowadays, this is like this automation allows me to pay full attention to whatever's happening in the present, rather than living in the past or worrying about the future, which was my working life before. So I'm in a very good spot now. I can take time to speak like this. I can take time ignoring my voicemail because I know I'm not needed in the daily basis anymore due to automation, which is fantastic for my private life. So the stress level is going down a lot. Yes, so this with automation and AI and robots and everything that we're using, how will that affect us? Will we have more? How will that affect my team? Is actually what I'm trying to talk about here. Will they replace me? And this is actually the very interesting part about automation. If you take next slide. That the human contribution is actually more important now than it was before, because before automation, the people, the business side it was too complex for them to understand everything. And it was so little human intervention because the machines were doing everything. And now every decision they make is very, very important. This is like the most important thing is about automation is the human interference. And also, if you look for the top 10 job skills for 2020, this is not something I made up, it's from the recruitment firms. That on spot number 6 is the way you emotional intelligence. That is actually that you have to be able to have empathy and be able to work in groups and communicate and be good in meetings, talking with people with other skill sets than yourself. This is actually getting more and more important. And this is what I actually experience after automation, that I don't have to talk about technology. I have to talk about business needs. I have to understand what they're talking about and be able to convince them that we have the data so they can make a good decision. So back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Torchel. Thank you, Simon, for this very interesting talks. So we will now have like a discussion where we go into some aspects you already talked about and also answer some of the participants' questions. For all the participants, please feel free to just write your questions into the webinar tool. We will then ask them here and discuss them if we have enough time. So what's really interesting is, Torchel, you already talked about how skills change with automation, and maybe Simon, this question is for you. What do you think with the increasing productivity of automation and the changing processes? What does it mean for teams regarding the size of a team, shapes of teams, different skill sets? Are there less people needed? Are there different or lower skills needed? What are your experiences here?
Yeah, so good question. I think it's definitely not less people. I think the roles will change, but what happens is that as you're able to do things quicker, the inevitable solution is you spend more time checking and improving. So I think there is definitely more engagement required with other people and different teams. But as a result, that gives you more time, and I touched on a little bit of this before, you spend more time with the business engaging with them, you spend more time with other people in the team. So generally, you will not need less people, but it means that what you get is better. And one example, we had at Rank, we were developing something where we were doing some omni-channel work across our existing bricks and mortars retail business and our digital business. completely two different business areas. And by trying to bring together their data sets so we can cross-sell across them, we ended up having some great debates, more time needed with them. They'd tried solving those problems before with someone just writing, a set of reports, no automation in there. And by doing this, we were able to iterate fast, explain the problems, show the problems. And so the analysis came out as being, yeah, we could deliver something quicker, but actually we ended up delivering more value and solving problems where people didn't really know what questions to ask, and we were able to ask them questions about, is this what you're asking? Is this what you should have thought about up front? And those things came out. So far more interaction, far better solutions coming out of it, but slightly different skills. So I think suddenly you get to the point where, yes, you can deliver quickly, but then you need to communicate very well with people about that. Otherwise, you just automate the same thing and end up with the same bad product faster. So the interaction, the ability to have the time to do stuff is where I'd expect it to go. And because you can do that, you end up getting more work, which may lead to more people, but it certainly wouldn't lead to less people.
Great, thanks for that. Do you also see like influences when it comes to outsourcing? So does automation also leads to more outsourced or offshore projects?
Yes, so let me pick up on that one. The offshoring one is an interesting one. To be able to offshore anything, you need to define it clearly. So putting something out there which is not clearly understood is difficult to do. So the reality is, yes, you have a better opportunity to offshore things. And there are certain elements of things that you can put offshore straight away. So that's absolutely a cost reduction exercise. But, and I'll go back to it, you still need people within the team who will then be able to, who'll be onshore, who will spend more time, more closely with the business, talking to them. So I think it changes, maybe it comes back to the other question, a different skill set, because you will need people who can absolutely knock out the code, using, and configure using the tools. But then, the engagement with the business needs to be done. So you'll need more of those people onshore, and maybe some of that work to do the automation offshore. But it can, because the work is done quicker and it's lower cost, then actually the question of offshoring it, yeah, you have that option, but it becomes less critical because you're getting your cost down anyway by doing it faster onshore. So if there's a business you want to offshore it, definitely more potential to do it, but it means that your skill sets onshore grow faster and your collaboration with the business will grow as well. So I think, that, yeah, you can definitely do more offshore, but it doesn't necessarily lead to that.
Great. So maybe a more technical aspect that is also interesting to me, Torchel. So when we talk about automation, how does it work with more complex business logic or high data volumes? So what happens when we have to scale it? Does automation scale, or do we need performance tuning? What are your experiences here?
Yeah, so I will like to split that one into two parts. When it comes to complex business logic, automation is very good because you can iterate and you can try and can see what's happened if you change a small bit here. So when it comes to business logic, you absolutely need automation tools to be able to make sure it comes out like you want. And also when it comes to performance, yes, you can try different things if you have done it good automation. Then when it comes to the high data volumes, that doesn't really help in practice, because it's always, if problems getting the data to Azure or to Snowflake or to your on-prem, it's more like a bandwidth problem than actually for automation. So that is still a problem. Then if you have very, very high data volumes, of course. I mean, if you just have some terabytes, that is fine. But if you really upscale it, you will have the same problem as you used to have.
Okay, I see. Okay, so factor that is here raised in the questions from the audience is the cultural thing. So this is probably a question towards Simon. What do you think about culture? So what I get from your presentation is that automation is not only a technical thing, you also need to think about processes, organization, and culture. So how do you how can you impact the data culture? How can you establish a data culture in an organization? So how can you change people's minds about the importance of data, about the importance of automation, and to think in automation processes? Do you have any tips for the audience here?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I think the data culture is critical, because the more you engage with the business, the more they need to understand what the process is. So I think historically what would happen is that, and this is more of an IT approach to things rather than a data approach, you would have a set of requirements, go build something, and then when you've delivered it, you present it back to them and say, there's the answer. And historically with data, that's just the worst possible approach, because as soon as you present data to someone, they're going to ask more questions than they originally had. And those questions will come through the data quality, the content of the data that they didn't expect, because that's what was captured at source, and we can't magically create, as they sometimes expect. We can't create the outputs that they originally intended in the source systems but didn't actually capture, and that seems to be a little bit of magic they often ask for. So what it means is that you have to have that engagement to say, by the way, when we capture this, there will be some things around it. The definitions of the data may be different across different products. Your definition of revenue may be different to what we thought originally, but that's okay, because when we then show you those answers, you are going to have more questions about it. And so therefore you have to go back. The point about the culture is you have to go back to the business and be able to explain that when you've built what they're looking for to start with, it's only the start of the journey, and that involves more discussions. We'll end up fixing things at source. We'll end up with a whole data governance exercise around definitions. We'll end up with a bit of a data quality exercise to go fix the data, improve that, get rid of duplicate accounts and all those sort of things. And I think that's the bit where the culture is absolutely critical. You need to set expectations that that's what's going to happen, that delivery on day one doesn't just get you an answer, it is the start. To explain that before you start, and then to engage, and then it enables you to have, it gives you almost permission to have discussions around data governance, data quality, around what they really should have asked for and didn't, because they're maybe not experienced enough to know how to ask for a data solution. And so it's about helping educate them, and then they go back to source and they start saying, okay, I now understand why we need to ensure that when customers are entering their details, we don't let them put Mickey Mouse as the customer name and put in the first alphabetic country they can when putting in their country location. They now have to do those things properly, because when we're analyzing the results. So I think data at the end presents all of those things. The quicker you can get to what those results are about, and the more you can explain, then obviously you can have those discussions. And that's when you then start changing the culture of the firm to say, actually, you all have to be part of the team, because it's your data that describes our business and our operations. And just automation gets you to that point quicker and helps have those discussions, and then you can fix it and show that when those things have been fixed, you can show, well, actually we've made progress. So it involves that greater engagement and a far more iterative approach. So I think that's kind of my top recommendation is explain those things up front and explain what you're going to get to.
Okay, so it's a lot about educating people and explaining. I also think one important factor is, or what I get from your presentations is our interdisciplinary teams. So I think it's not only data people. I think you have to bring together business and data people. Is this true? And if so, what do you think is the ratio? Are there more business or data people? And do you have any tips? How can I manage that the people get along together, that they get the shared mindset and work together?
Yeah, I mean, it is a mix of people. I think you always need a few business experts who understand your business operations, understand, how the processes work and the data, and you will always need a few of those. And you need the people who are looking at and understanding the data, and so getting them together as a, almost a if you're doing sort of agile development as a scrum team, getting them to work together collaboratively is key. So I think, yes, a few, experts, plus your data experts, plus your business analysts who can capture all the documentation and write those things down, and go and find those actions. When you come out with those issues, you need someone who's going to follow up on the actions, and I think that's all important. And that's where you would then bring your data quality, data governance people to those discussions as well. So it is a hybrid team.
Okay, great. Maybe picking up on this question, Torchel, so you work in an organization that adopted automation in some areas. Do you have any experience when it comes to acceptance? Were there any barriers of things that people can take care of when they think about adapting automation in their organizations?
Yes. As I mentioned, is actually if you do automation, you will get a common language that you can share with everyone, because you will not talk about 15 or 20 or 25 or different source systems. You will talk about data sets. So and also this will provide you with a unified documentation and a dictionary that everyone is on board with. And of course, it will be discussion how you will calculate specific fields, but that is just the focus for like a small part of it. You will be much more, when everyone have the same documentation, you can actually move forward. And again, I realize ITIL will help you to get better teams. It's boring as hell, but it's very helpful when you actually get it to work.
Okay, I see. And yeah, maybe when we hear also one or two more hands-on questions. So what are your experiences? How large is the effort to automate things? And isn't it sometimes easier to make it like quick and dirty instead of writing automated processes?
Yes, of course, quick and dirty is very, it's very nice quite often. But if you want to look back at it in a couple of months, you will always regret you did it quick and dirty. So if you do it properly from the beginning, it will help you, and it will also make it very easy for you if you want to do offshoring. And if you want to have DevOps, you want to do them, everyone to develop in the same way.
Okay, so automation pays off in the long run, definitely. And
yes, in the short run too. But I mean, it's sometimes okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to move this data in my script here, and you will always regret that.
Okay. And did it ever occur that there are like non-trivial errors that stayed unnoticed? So I think if processes like run automatically without human intervention, is there the possibility that something maybe stay unnoticed, or there will be things that you will not see? Or how do you handle this, Torchel, when you process things like, is there somebody checking it? Do you have monitoring or?
Yes, we have that. We're using SCOM, so we are using WhereScape, and all the errors that we are getting in WhereScape, we are pushing up as an event, and then we push it to SCOM. So we have a first line or second line in Riga that is actually looking into the errors for us. So they could disappear, but if you go back to ITIL and you do incident of everything, you're good.
Okay, so you need a process and then a tool like WhereScape that handles the issues. Okay. So maybe a last question from the audience, which is really interesting and also brings up a hot topic currently, GDPR and privacy. How can data automation help you with dealing with GDPR and privacy compliance constraints? Do you have any experience in that? I think this question is more toward Torchil, but maybe Simon, you also have something to say on that.
Yes, I can start. Yes, of course, we have a huge amount of information that we don't want to share with everyone. So when you build the automation, for example, salaries or sick days or things like that from the HR, we do it encrypted, and the automation script is running encrypted, so no one can actually see the data. And it's very important that no one can do a quick fix for it. So yes, automation will absolutely help you build up a very good GDPR compliance.
You, Simon, do you see this requirement from companies a lot, or as a chief data officer, I think you have to deal a lot with GDPR and privacy constraints. Do you see that a lot, and do you think automation can help here?
Yes, I think it's an unequivocal yes. The starting point is just transparency around what you're doing. So with being able to key things around GDPR are understanding what data is being used, where it comes from, how it's being processed. All of that is much clearer when when you automate something. You have to think about it up front. You have to put together the configuration of what you're doing, where the data is coming from. It's all very clear. So one of the things we found is that and that is a very sensitive area to us at Rank, because we have 5 million customers and they're retail customers, so it's absolutely critical to us. If we didn't do automation, I think we'd have no idea of understanding every single job that we run, where the data is coming from, where it's being put. So that whole lineage of the data is all automatically documented. We can check all of that beforehand. It's all in a standard way. So it makes a big difference to us to be able to do that. And I think we have a bigger issue than most, in the sense that we're in an industry which is heavily regulated, and regulated in a way where there's a lot of pressure on us to do the right thing by our customers, by the Gambling Commission. And so we have to be able to prove and be whiter than white, in terms of our transparency of data, processing, everything else. And I think without automation, you would end up with people, and pick up on Torgil's previous point about, yes, of course you can hack something, you can do something quick and dirty, but you never have any transparency around that, and it's someone else's code that's buried somewhere. So I think having some structure, which automation gives you, does enable you to be a lot more confident about what you're doing with your data, and and you still can't stop people doing things they shouldn't do, but the transparency is the bit that really does mean that you can turn around if someone has a query and says, well, I want to know exactly where my data is, where it's being used, where it's being moved to. We can do all of that and we can evidence it, and I think that's a big help to us.
I agree. Thank you completely.
Great, thank you for that. So maybe to close this webinar, do you have like a last hands-on tip for everybody in the audience that tries to get started with automation?
Yeah, so Simon here, I'm happy to start. My tip would be, and I come at this from a value perspective, is if you want people to understand the value they can get from data, you have to be able to deliver it faster. And therefore, having an automation tool enables you to deliver results more quickly. And if you can deliver results more quickly, people will sponsor more work. So that kind of secures people's roles and enables you to get the value out there. So demonstrating value quicker is absolutely critical.
Torchil, you have anything to add?
Yes, the most boring thing. I embrace ITIL. But I mean, Simon's tips is, I mean, just do it. I mean, you can't run anything in 2020 without being able to test it. And if you want to test things, you need automation. And with automation, you can actually try different outcomes. If you want to change something, you can try it very much quicker. So you don't fix to one business solution. You can try, okay, let's see what's happened if we will look at data this way. And you will do it, and you can say, okay, this didn't work, we throw it away, and we try it again. And this is done so much quicker if you have built it through automation. And all the metadata you have with it, you can do perfect, or not perfect, but you will do very good documentation, and you will understand the data, and you can trace the data. So yes, get in there. And also look for the top 6 and the top talents you need for next year. You have to be able to communicate with people. That is a hard thing for us IT guys.
Great, thank you. I really like the mindset, just do it. So thank you, Simon. Thank you, Torche, for the really insightful discussion. Also, thank you, WhereScape, for bringing us together here. And thank everybody for attending this webinar. Everybody who attended will get a recording after the webinar. And if you have any question and it was not answered during the discussion or the presentations, please feel free to contact us, to contact Torche or Simon or myself or anybody else, and just ask. So thank you a lot, and I'm happy to see you again in the next webinar.